Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this presentation of the undergraduate social work qualifying programme at Bournemouth University. My name is Richard Williams. I'm an academic. I teach on the social work qualifying programmes, and I'm the admissions tutor for the degrees. Excuse me. I'm also a registered social worker and proud to be so. I've worked in social work and social care for a few decades now, and I'm also proud to be associated with what I consider to be probably the best team of people I've ever worked with, and that's really important because if I'm going to be an admissions tutor and look you in the eye, albeit through the camera these days, then I need to be able to be honest and represent the programme as a high quality programme. The discipline is too important for myself and my colleagues to do other than expect the highest standards from ourselves and from our students. Okay, so first off, we're part of a teaching partnership, and that means that with the university, with the local authorities of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, Wiltshire and Dorset, social services, we are part of a social work teaching partnership, and that means it's a two-way flow. So academics going and doing master classes and continuing professional development with qualified practitioners and into the local authorities, but also practitioners coming in and contributing to the teaching on the programme, which means that I think semester one last year, something like 45 practitioners contributed directly to the teaching of the programme. And that's really good for keeping everything up to date and retaining that currency and that link between theory and practice in a meaningful way. And this reflects one of the core values of my colleagues, of myself and my colleagues, and that's about learning from the lived experience, which is actually the name of the research centre most of us belong to. This is a book published by, authored by Mel Hughes, Dr. Mel Hughes, one of the social work team, who's the academic lead for the peer partnership, and that's the public involvement in education and research. It's about 105, 110 service users and carers who are an important part of all that we do, which from teaching, admissions, role playing, all sorts. So it's people with a lived experience as service users and carers. And this book reflects that ethos because each chapter is somebody who has experience of social work and social care as a foster care or a foster child, someone who's been assessed under the Mental Health Act, someone whose children have been taken into care, someone who's been in a women's refuge, all different experiences, but linked with somebody who is a social worker, either an academic as a social worker or a practitioner, to include within that process what the law was around this, why certain things happened. There's about 20, 25 chapters in the book, and it's all about people about our learning from the lived experience. And again, that really reflects the ethos of the team. And then we come to core values, so valuing diversity and anti-oppressive practice. So valuing diversity is about everybody. So no matter who we're working with, no matter who we are, about that difference and valuing that difference and acknowledging, recognising it and valuing it. And anti-oppressive practice I would describe as knocking on a door sometimes when one may not feel particularly comfortable, a little bit nervous, or not feeling overly confident, not sure what to expect. You're coming in, it could be child protection or adult protection, whatever it might be. But the person who's coming to answer the door, parent, child, whatever it might be, maybe have a very different experience and sees the person knocking the door as a very powerful person, someone who can have a tremendous influence. And it's understanding that difference and actually acknowledging that in one's approach and how one operates. So that's just an example of understanding how anti-oppressive practice is important as it's applied into social work. It's a professional qualification as well as an academic qualification. So it's a degree, it's an undergraduate honours degree, but it's also a professional qualification. It's been approved by Social Work England, the regulator for social work. So somebody who graduates from the programme is entitled to apply for registration as a social worker. It's a legal title, and to call oneself a social worker without being registered is actually an offence. So the balance between learning, university, and placement is an effective balance. So there's 170 days in practice setting. And throughout the consideration of evidence that informs practice, so what is the research? What does evidence say? What works? And to have that as part of one's development and incorporate that into one's learning. Critical thinking. I think the cartoon speaks for itself. I take full responsibility for choosing the cartoon, but I really like it. Be a good seminar topic, wouldn't it? Okay, so and it's a university. So the people who are in front of you, in the main, will be research active, and that's really important. So you should be able to expect people who are well informed, who are able to disseminate information and to facilitate learning and to be up to date with in that sense. But also people who contribute to learning through their own research. And while these are examples of text, colleagues are very much involved in research and publication through academic journals. And then to the 3 years. So the first year, so we're talking at level 4. So just to explain, level 2 is GCSE type level, level 3 A level kind of or equivalent, and then first year undergraduates level 4, and this is where we are now. This is semester 1, and I describe this as a relatively light year. And while first year students may well disagree with me, that's entirely reasonable. I think in comparative to the second and third years, it's relatively light. So 3 units at level 4, semester 1. Social exclusion and discrimination, which is the sociological context, psychosocial perspectives, which is around human development across the lifespan, and then foundations for professional practice and research is an opportunity to work with colleagues across the other professional programs, so midwives, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, looking at developing those skills as an evidence-informed practitioner. And then in semester 2, actually learning from the lived experience, which kind of reflects that ethos which we share as a team, which I mentioned earlier. And that's about working with a small group of people, normally led by one of our peer partners, public involvement in education and research, one of a service user and carer, looking at a particular aspect of provision, so it could be mental health, special educational needs, whatever. But looking at that in depth and being in the community and asking questions, talking with people, working with the peer partner, asking questions that you might not normally feel comfortable asking. But getting involved in learning about something that's an emotionally challenging area of work. And then at the end of the unit, coming back and presenting your learning with your group to the cohort of students, and that is always a fabulous day, really quite exciting day, and it's a great unit, and it's Dr. Mel Hughes who leads that unit. And then readiness for direct practice and social work, and that's looking at those the key aspects of professional standards, looking at social work England's requirements, the professional standards as a registered social worker, looking at that readiness for direct practice. And then finally, law and social policy is looking at the core legislation as it relates to social work and how that's applied in practice. So it's the Children Act 1989 and the Mental Health Acts, and particularly, obviously, the Human Rights Act 1998, key areas of legislation. So that's the end of the first year. So each semester, 3 units at level 4, and then level 5. So that's the next year. So level 5 is the second year undergraduate. First half is the 70-day first substantive placement, and that tends to be in a service user rich environment. So that could be a children's home, day centre, women's refuge, different environments in the independent, voluntary, and private sector generally. It's a supportive and a supported environment. So you're going in there as a supernumerary member of staff. So you're not there as an extra body, if you like. There will be a placement supervisor and a practice educator. Practice educator helps you link theory to practice, and the placement supervisor is like a line manager. And we tend to we look to put you into places where it's a new experience. It's a generic qualifying program, social work. So we're looking at applying those core skills in different settings. So it's good to go into a new environment and to challenge yourself and learn about new areas of practice. Each week there's a half a day is in place for your personal reflective time. Most people take a day off a fortnight to do that, and we take account of. We're always going to be looking at before we place people what their caring responsibilities are. So, for instance, make it obvious. If you've got 3 children under 5 going to school in Christchurch, we're not going to be looking to place you in a hostel in Weymouth. So there's practical considerations we will always look, as well as your learning needs. And having completed that, it's back into semester 2 now. So look at that. That's 4 units at level 5. So that's why I say the first year is relatively light. So there's 4 units at level 5. First off, it's methods and approaches for social work intervention, and that's kind of self-explanatory, but very much looking at what works, what evidence there is for different methods and approaches, and their effectiveness, and then thinking about how one would apply those into practice. Research for professional practice links to the unit in the first year where you were working with other professional groups. This is the level 5 progression, developing as an evidence-informed practitioner. Relationship skills in social work is an acknowledgement of social work being a relationship-based discipline. So looking at what those skills are, developing those skills throughout that unit. And social justice and social work, and that's exploring the application of that very core key principle that's held so highly in social work. And that takes you to the end of the second year, and then to the third year. And in semester 1, so those 2 first units there, there's the 4 units at level 6. Professional practice with adults and professional practice with children and their families. Now that mirrors the structure of social services within local authority settings. And that's why those units are set up in that way, albeit the slight anomaly that there are adults in families, but nevertheless, that's how social services tend to be structured. Mental health and substance use is an acknowledgement of those key factors being common to so much of the practice in professional practice with adults and professional practice with children and their families, so exploring those issues in considerable depth. And the critical literature review is developing those critical thinking and critical writing skills, but applying that to an area of practice that you're passionate about, that you're keen on developing your knowledge and understanding around, and doing that in some depth. And then after that, semester 2 is the final 100-day substantive placement, and that's undertaking statutory tasks, mostly in local authority settings, working in social work teams, and with a similar structure around being supernumerary and with a practice educator and placement supervisor. We look to match students where we can with the offers that we have given from local authorities to consider where students are reflecting or considering developing their own career as they leave university. Okay, so just in terms of practice learning, you will experience 2 contrasting service user groups. So it's not always children and then adults. It can be 2 different areas of children or 2 different areas of adults. But it's 2 contrasting service user groups. That's a requirement of all social work qualifying programs. Statutory social work tasks, including legal intervention. So often that's in the local authority setting in the final placement. And we find quality assure and match students to placements, and that's fundamental. So it's our job to find and make sure that they are appropriate in terms of their quality and as a match for the student. So bearing in mind. So it is true to say that there is a wider range of final placements available for students who have access to transport. It's not exclusive, but there are a number of placements where it is a benefit or a requirement to have transport, for instance, doing home visits. So that's something that's worth bearing in mind for the final year. And most of our placements are organised through the local authority partners in the teaching partnership. So that's Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole, Dorset and Wiltshire. Okay, so the entry requirements. We're looking at 120 UCAS points and we look at health checks and DBS disclosures. And relevant qualifications, so those core skills, English and numeracy, are essential. In terms of application, understanding social science, and so given that it's that balance, isn't it? It's the balance between academic and professional. We're also looking for an aptitude for social work. So that can be through a combination of life experience and or voluntary work experience and or paid social care experience, and an opportunity to, through your application process, to reflect upon your learning. And to demonstrate your your passion, your interest. I mean, that's what it's about. Okay, in terms of process, UCAS form completion, and then we select for sections are made for interview and invite people to candidates to attend for an interview. The assessment day is, as you can appreciate, as we enter the next period of restrictions because of COVID-19. We're looking to create an introduction, an opportunity to meet with current students and current practitioners, and then some form of maybe group exercise and a written exercise and an individual interview. And that there is an element of that which is a work in progress, but certainly written exercise, certainly individual interview with a lecturer, and we're certainly going to try and make it available to meet with current students, and then if we can, current practitioners as well. So there are a limited number of bursaries available. They are the government announces them year by year, and they're still available to the undergraduate social work qualifying programme. They're available for level 5 and level 6. The government do not give enough bursaries for everybody to have one every time, so we have to rank people in an order, and we rank that on the basis of academic performance in the first year, at the end of the first year. And so things to consider. Impact of study on family life. Certainly the first year, while it's relatively light, second and third years have full-time commitments in terms of placements, for instance, and a stronger academic requirement. So be aware of the impact of study on family life. The academic and professional demands, so the demands of being in university alongside the demands of being in practice, and preparation for the course through introductory reading. I have to put this one in. I think we're all quite pleased. Personally, as a Guardian reader, have been since I was a boy. Do follow the Guardian league tables. They are quite well publicised, and they do rank universities, and they rank courses. And this year, we're really quite pleased, obviously, that Bournemouth University social work course has been ranked first out of the 74 in the UK. So we're understandably quite proud of that. Bournemouth's new Gateway building opened in January 2021. Well, it's kind of open now, but we're moving in and getting things settled in there. It's a brand new state-of-the-art building. And please, I think I'm taking a notice of the phone number because that office won't be used for some time as we work from home. But those are my contact details, and you are more than welcome to contact me at any given time. So I really thank you very much for taking the time, and do genuinely contact me. I'm more than happy to hear from you at any given time. Thank you.